I have lived in the same house for 42 years, a house older than the interstate that runs 2 miles from my front door. And in that time, I've never once had a fire. Not a close call, not a scorched outlet, not one trip from the fire department. That's not luck. Home structure fires cause billions of dollars in property damage every year in this country, and electrical distribution sits consistently among the top causes. Mine hasn't, because of 8 specific habits I picked up the hard way, mostly by watching what almost went wrong in other people's houses. Here's exactly what they are, in the order I'd rank them if my own place were on fire tonight and I only had time to grab one lesson on the way out. Understand what these 8 habits actually protect against first. It's rarely the dramatic stuff. Nobody's house burns down because of a lightning strike or a gas leak most winters. It's a background hum running through an enormous share of American homes, most of them completely unaware, because none of these 8 mistakes look dangerous while you're making them. They look like a normal Tuesday, right up until they don't. Habit 1, and it's the one I break my own rule for the least. Anything that makes heat plugs straight into the wall, always, never into a cord or a strip. A space heater, a window air conditioner, anything with a heating coil or a compressor inside it goes directly into the outlet. I learned this from a neighbor 2 streets over back in the 90s, whose space heater had been running through an extension cord under a rug for most of a winter. The Consumer Product Safety Commission ties portable space heaters to around 1,700 fires a year, and a meaningful share of those trace back to the cord, not the heater. Most heaters pull somewhere close to 1,500 watts. Most standard extension cords are rated for something closer to 13 or 15 amps. Call it 1,800 watts, if the cord's in perfect shape, which hers wasn't after a winter of being walked on. Nobody heard a bang at her place. No sirens, no smoke alarm going off in the middle of the night. What she got was a smell like a hot iron drifting into the hallway at 11 at night, and a scorch mark under that rug the exact width of the cord. She was lucky. I decided not to need luck. Habit 2. I have never in 42 years plugged one extension cord into another. Daisy chaining, stretching your reach by connecting cord to cord, is one of those habits that feels harmless because it usually works, right up until it doesn't. It's flagged as a violation under both OSHA guidance and the National Electrical Code, and fire marshals in more than a few states have been putting out fresh warnings about it lately. Every connection point adds resistance. Every bit of resistance adds heat. If a cord won't reach, that's not a problem you solve with a second cord. That's a sign you need an outlet installed where you actually need one. Not a workaround, a real fix, and that means a call to an electrician, not a trip to the hardware store aisle with the orange cords. Habit 3 lives in my kitchen, and it's the one that took me longest to actually follow, because it never looks dangerous while you're doing it. I don't run a toaster and a coffee maker off the same power strip anymore, and I definitely don't add a third thing to that strip during a busy morning. Individually, either appliance is fine. Together, you can be asking a strip rated for maybe 15 amps to carry 2 appliances that each pull somewhere close to 10 amps on their own. I flip over anything I'm about to plug in and check the wattage stamped on the bottom. If everything sharing one strip creeps anywhere near 1,800 watts, something comes off that strip and goes into a different outlet on a different circuit. It takes about 10 seconds, and it's the single easiest habit on this list to actually keep. Habit 4 only matters for about 6 weeks a year, but those 6 weeks are exactly when house fires spike. Before any string of holiday lights goes up, I check the tag for the maximum number of strings that can be connected end to end, because older strings in particular were never built to be chained past 2 or 3 deep. Past that limit, you've built the same daisy chain problem from Habit 2 and wrapped it in tinsel. I've walked past more than one neighbor's tree with 4 strings run into each other feeding a single outlet behind it, doing double duty with whatever else is plugged in nearby, and I've never once seen anyone actually read the tag. 2 minutes with the box before the ladder comes out. That's the whole habit. It costs you nothing, and it's the easiest one on this entire list to skip, which is exactly why so many people skip it. Habit 5 is the one that made me finally get my panel opened up by a professional instead of just guessing. My house was built right in the window when aluminum wiring was common, the mid-1960s into the early 1970s, before builders went back to copper for good reason. Aluminum expands and contracts more than copper every time a circuit heats and cools, and that constant flexing works connections loose at the outlet, at the switch, at the panel itself. Loose connections mean resistance, and resistance means heat building somewhere you can't see it. Research commissioned by the federal government found homes wired with pre-1972 aluminum are 55 times more likely to have at least one connection reach fire hazard conditions, hot to the touch, sparking, scorched, compared to a copper-wired home. I had every aluminum connection in my panel and outlets pigtailed to copper by a licensed electrician years ago, and I still check for a warm switch plate the way other people check the mail. It takes 2 seconds, resting the back of 2 fingers against a plate on my way past, and I've done it so many times it doesn't even register as a task anymore. It's just part of walking through my own hallway. Habit 6 goes back even further than the aluminum. Underneath one layer of renovation, part of my attic still has a run of knob and tube, the ceramic knobs and open-air tubes that were standard before the 1950s. That wiring was engineered to cool itself with open air around every conductor, rated for maybe 60 amps of total service, back when a house ran a few light bulbs and a radio. There's no ground wire in the system at all, so a fault has nowhere safe to go. That open-air design is exactly why insulation contractors won't touch it. Bury knob and tube under modern attic insulation, and you've taken away the one thing keeping it from overheating on its own. No overloaded outlet required. I had mine inspected and deactivated rather than pretend it wasn't there, and the electrician who did it told me she finds active knob and tube behind fresh insulation more often than she'd like to admit. Old house investigators have a name for what usually happens next. They call it the near miss nobody noticed. A family smells something faint and electrical for weeks, blames the furnace, and only calls someone out when a breaker starts tripping for no obvious reason. Sometimes the electrician pulls a cover plate and finds char marks on a splice that's been arcing quietly inside the wall for who knows how long. No fire that time. Just a warning almost nobody was trained to read. I think about that family every time I smell something faintly electrical and I'm tempted to blame the furnace. It's an easy excuse. The furnace runs all winter, and something about it always smells a little warm, a little dusty, a little off. And that's exactly the cover a real problem hides behind. So I don't guess anymore. I call. Every single time, even the times it turned out to be nothing. Habit 7 is the smallest amount of effort on this entire list, and it might be doing more work than anything else. I test every GFCI outlet in my kitchen and bathrooms once a month, and I never, ever leave one unplugged or bypassed because it kept tripping on some device I liked using. A ground fault circuit interrupter cuts power in a fraction of a second the moment current starts leaking somewhere it shouldn't, which is the difference between a shock and a fatality. My panel also runs arc fault protection on the older circuits, which listens for the electrical signature of a bad connection, the exact kind an aluminum joint or a chewed knob and tube wire produces, and kills the circuit before that arcing turns into flame. Neither device fixes bad wiring behind the wall. Both of them buy you the seconds it takes to notice something's wrong before it becomes something you can't undo. Seconds matter. A tripping GFCI means the system is doing exactly what it was built to do. Habit 8 is the one I'm the strictest about, because it isn't just about my house anymore. When the power goes out and I run my portable generator, it goes through a transfer switch that a licensed electrician installed, and it has never once been connected to a wall outlet with a cord plugged in at both ends. Some people run what's called a suicide cord, a heavy-duty extension cord with a male plug on each end, straight from the generator into a wall outlet, trying to backfeed power into the house. It works, in the sense that the lights come back on. It also sends that power flowing backward through the panel and straight out onto the utility lines outside, lines that a crew somewhere assumes are dead because the whole neighborhood lost power. That's how line workers get electrocuted restoring power they were told was safe to touch. Backfed power also skips every breaker your panel would normally use to protect the house, which removes the one thing standing between an overloaded circuit and a fire. One plug in one outlet with 2 ways to kill, and neither one has to be me for it to be my fault. Utility crews are trained to treat every downed or de-energized line as live until it's tested, precisely because they know backfeeding happens somewhere every time the power goes out for long enough. But that training doesn't stop a live line from being live. It just means the crew that finds it is the one that pays for somebody else's shortcut. A transfer switch costs a fraction of what a wrongful death claim does, and it physically disconnects the house from the grid before the generator ever gets a chance to send a single watt backward. Every other habit on this list is something I can fix on my own timeline if I slip up once. This one has no room for slipping. Underneath all 8 of those habits sits the cheapest, least glamorous one I haven't even counted separately. Every level of my house, basement included, has a working smoke detector, tested monthly, batteries swapped twice a year, without fail. It doesn't need to know the difference between an aluminum connection and a daisy-chained cord. It just needs to wake me up before the smoke finishes the job the wiring should have prevented in the first place. 1 button, 1 second, once a month, on the same day every month, so I never have to remember if I already did it. None of these 8 habits are interesting. That's sort of the point. Nobody films a viral video of a smoke detector that worked. Nobody writes a news story about the fire that never started because a switch plate never got hot enough to notice. The whole reward for doing this stuff right is that nothing happens, ever. And it took me years to make peace with how unsatisfying that actually feels in the moment. But I've stood in a neighbor's driveway more than once, watching a fire truck's lights bounce off wet pavement at 2 in the morning. And unsatisfying beats that every single time. 42 years isn't luck, and it isn't superstition either. It's 8 boring decisions, repeated so many times they stop feeling like decisions at all. Was it worth the extra 5 minutes to plug that heater straight into the wall instead of running it off a cord under the rug? Every family that's had that conversation with a fire marshal standing in their driveway would tell you it was worth it 100 times over. 5 minutes. That's the whole cost. If your house has been standing longer than you have, go find your panel this weekend and actually look at what's inside it before winter makes the decision for you.